Hey, welcome in you Gooshbagz to week 2 of the 2021 Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League podcast. I am your host, the humblest commissioner of the Gooshbagz Fantasy Football League, Jason, of course. I am here with a guy who is a wonderful teacher of the future generation, as good a pickleball player as he is bad at fantasy, and the man who rides the back of Derrick Henry all the way to, unfortunately, a victory for him. None other than Neil Metarata. How are you, Neil?
Thank you. It's really unfortunate that my team had to get on Derrick Henry's back, much like the Titans did. But sometimes you got to win ugly, and that's what just happened this week.
That's true. That's true. Hey, I forgot something for you. Let me redo this. None other than Neil Metarata. Woo! Yeah, that's right. We got the studio audience in here once again, and this time we have the music piped in into the sound system. So none of this janky old using a speaker and another microphone dealio. So how you doing, Neil?
Doing all right. It was a long day, but I had this to look forward to, so I'm happy that it is here.
Dope. Not only were you teaching kids in school, but you were also teaching kids tennis, right?
Well, I was actually doing pickleball lessons today.
Pickleball lessons. Oh,
Yep.
so you completely dropped tennis. Have you dropped tennis completely?
I still volunteer assistant coach for the Auburn girls, and I will be the full-time assistant coach for the boys come spring.
There you
So
go.
still involved in tennis.
So, how similar are the two when you're coaching them?
There's a lot of the mindset stuff that's the same. In tennis, the strokes are a little bit longer, and it requires a little bit more movement. But there definitely are some similarities. Funny story, real quick. I had a tournament. I was at a tournament this last weekend, and there were actually tennis protesters because part of the tournament was on the tennis courts, and some of the tennis people didn't like that.
Oh, they weren't big fans of pickleball on their tennis courts, huh?
Exactly.
Wait, did they want to play, and so they were mad that it was being taken up, or what? Were they just mad that pickleball
They,
was being played
they
on the tennis?
just hate pickleball because it's more fun than tennis. That's all.
Probably. Well, you got a few tennis players here that'll probably listen to the podcast, so we'll see what they think. But
Well,
if
that
pickleball
are,
is
the tennis
tennis,
in this league are, I believe it's just Brandon and Adam, and I've both gotten them out to play pickleball before, and they both thought it would be easier than it actually was.
I did play pickleball in like high school gym class, and I tell you what, I don't think there were any tennis players on my team. On my maybe like freshman year, if Adam was still at Lutheran, he was in my gym class, I think. But other than that, I don't think there were any tennis players in my gym class, so I was pretty good compared to everybody else. But I'm sure I would get stomped by any of you tennis players out on the court. So
Everybody thinks they're good until they get their butts beat by a bunch of 70-year-old women.
oh, I'm sure. I mean, I think I think they have a better chance of beating you in pickleball than they do in tennis. That's for sure. Less
Yeah.
mobility needed, probably.
Yep.
But all right, well, we are going to get started getting back to football here. Unfortunately, we got some big injury news this week. It was a very busy injury week this week, so we'll start with our sad music. Unfortunately, we're going to start with the Bears, somebody that neither of us cares about. But Andy Dalton had some sort of ankle injury. I'm not exactly sure how long he's going to be out, but they're giving Justin Fields the opportunity to start, something I'm sure many Bears fans are actually looking forward to. We got so many quarterbacks got hurt. We also have Carson Wentz, who also hurt an ankle, the opposite ankle that he was having trouble with in preseason. So now I think both of his ankles are broken. He might be out potentially. Tyrod Taylor, we're moving up the body here. Tyrod Taylor had a hamstring injury. And it looks like he's going to be out for a while, actually. I think something came out today that said he wasn't going to be in for a few weeks at least.
looking really.
Yeah, I know. Houston was surprising people coming out of here. So we'll see if General Mills can hold it together for the Houston Texans. I believe I forgot the guy's first name. I just know his nickname is General Mills. The David Mills, maybe, the quarterback for Houston now.
Nobody knows this.
Yeah. And we're still moving up. We got Tua, who had bruised ribs, which I think he's questionable or might be out now.
Yep. That Miami offensive line really seemed like they almost hate him with how they just let pass rushers through.
Maybe they're just terrible. No, I mean, who knows? I don't know what the locker room chemistry is like down there in Miami, so it could be. Maybe they were teaching Tua a lesson. But we also have Jarvis Landry, who sprained his MCL. He's week to week. They said they made it seem like it wasn't too bad, but I think he is for sure out this week. So we'll see if he can get back on the field. But there aren't too many good pass catchers now in Cleveland. He was kind of their star, as much of a star that Jarvis Landry can be. And then the one that is probably the most fantasy relevant is Daryl Henderson, who also bruised his ribs. He is questionable. I think they said it wasn't too bad. It's just a matter of pain management. So he could be out there this weekend. But we'll see. So, yeah, keep an eye on it as we're going through the week. But all right, are you ready to cheer on the top scorer of the week, Mr. Auto Draft himself?
Oh, I am.
It was Javarison Lamar was the name of his team, and it is oh my God, it is James, of course. James, you switch up your team name every single week just to mess with me. I'm pretty sure that's what he does. He had 153.82 fantasy points. That's what I wrote down yesterday. I was putting this together at the end of the game yesterday. Yep. Because literally every matchup had somebody playing last night. So I couldn't put any final scores into this Word document until like basically the end of the game. So it was so these are estimated scores that I've written down, mostly final, but they might be slightly different. So congratulations, James. I already sent you your $10. Also, I sent Aaron his $10 like yesterday or today as well. So you have your $10 from week one. All right. Are you ready to talk about how much Derrick Henry carried your team this week?
Well, although Derrick Henry did put the team on his back, it would not have been possible without the efforts from my other players. And we were coming off a pretty tough loss last week, really close matchup. And I sat down, I had a talk with A-Rod. I said, you know what? You got to play a little bit of angry this week. And that is exactly what he did.
I think Aaron Rodgers had a talk with the Detroit Lions and was like, I'm going to come out angry this week because everybody thinks we suck.
Yep. And he did not suck, right?
He did not. Yeah, so, I mean, like we said, or we teased earlier, you did win this week, 125.5 fantasy points to 114.64 fantasy points. I only lost by 11, which could have been worse. If I would have started MVS like I was thinking, who got 0 fantasy points, I was thinking maybe in a matchup like this that the wide receivers might go nuts, but instead it was Aaron Jones and stupid little tap passes from Aaron Rodgers that got him the touchdowns. But yeah, you had Aaron Rodgers with 26.8 fantasy points, which is pretty decent. I think he was top 10 for sure this week. But a good game either way. 4 touchdowns, right? I believe.
Yep. 55 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pretty efficient day from Aaron.
It was a very efficient day. I mean, they had a lot of short fields, it seemed like, but the run game was also better this week too, so he didn't have to pass as much. And Derrick Henry was the man of the week. Man, he had a massive game this week. He had 182 rush yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, I believe.
Yep.
Or receiving? No.
Touchdowns.
Yeah, and then he had 6 catches for 55 yards. He is getting involved in the passing game, which is dangerous for everybody else.
Yeah, so a lot of people before the season started, they were a little bit. I mean, obviously Derrick Henry is a very gifted rusher, but he's showing off that he can catch the ball too, and that's going to make him very dangerous. And I'm very happy I took it with my first pick this year.
Yeah, maybe I should have taken him over Dalvin Cook. I don't know. But yeah, it was definitely a good pick for sure. If neither Dalvin Cook nor Christian McCaffrey was available, I probably would have grabbed him. He was probably my consensus number 3. It's close between him and Kamara this year, but Kamara was also kept, so Derrick Henry was sitting there for you with no question whether or not to take him. So that was nice. You also had Scary Terry here coming out with Taylor Heineke as his quarterback, putting up 22.2 fantasy points. So basically, they scored the majority of your points this week because nobody else really had. Deebo Samuel had double digits, but everybody else was single digits.
So I'd like to point out, I don't know if you've ever done this before, but you lost to a team where 2 positions put up exactly 0 points.
Yeah, but it was your defense and kicker. So those are typical unreliable matchups. You know, Baltimore would have been -2 if Patrick Mahomes hadn't thrown that interception near the end of the game.
Yeah, and I was actually strongly considering once. So I'm going to be honest, I was not checking my lineup as often as I used to. I just saw that they were playing a team. I didn't realize they were playing Kansas City until Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I strongly considered not starting a defense this week because I saw they were playing the Chiefs.
You had all day to swap them out.
I did have all day to do it, and yet I still didn't. But
yeah, I was actually concerned that once everybody brought it up in the chat, like 15 minutes before the game started, I was almost sure that you were going to take him out of the lineup, and it would have been worse for me if you had. But fortunately for you, it was 0 points from them instead of negative points. Not that any number of negative points would have helped me in this matchup because I don't think I've ever seen a defense go below like -2 or -4. So it wouldn't have got me the win anyways, but it would have helped.
Yep. How'd your team do?
They did pretty good. I mean, yeah, overall, I can't really complain. They put up 114 points, almost 115 points. So, like, they didn't have, a bad time. But I had Tom Brady put up 29.64 points. He's been solid the first 2 weeks. I'm happy to have him on my team. As much as I hate cheering for him, he's a good quarterback. I had DJ Moore who put up 17.9 fantasy points, and everybody else, I did have a couple of duds. I had one main dud, which was George Kittle with 3.7 points, and then Allen Robinson had 9. You know, my defense had 5, but everyone else was in double digits, so I can't even be that mad about the matchup. I need more upside on this team. And I thought that like Dalvin Cook, Tom Brady, George Kittle would give me the upside I need, but they're not all pitching in every week, so we'll see. But yeah, you did have a few duds there. You had Baltimore's D and Jason Sanders both put up 0 points. You had Amari Cooper with only 3.9 after his massive week 1.
Yeah,
that's a little concerning. And then you had Jonathan Taylor with only 5.8 points. He's had a rough start to the year here. How do you feel? Well, I guess he had 14.6 in week 1, which isn't bad. But are you concerned at all with the way the offense looks in Tennessee or Indianapolis?
Considering last week he had 14.6 points, and so far this season he's had a league high 8 touches inside the 10 and 6 touches inside the 5 through 2 weeks. I know he hasn't scored yet, but I'm pretty sure that is coming soon.
Well, there you go. Heard it from here to here first. Jonathan Taylor isn't going anywhere. Um, yeah, I mean, I also had like Dalvin Cook put up a good week this week, but he didn't score a touchdown. He had 131 rushing yards and no touchdowns. So it's been rough. I'm used to Dalvin Cook putting numbers up in the high 20s most of the time. So we'll see. I mean, I think I got some potential for upside, and you definitely have potential for upside with A-Rod and Derrick Henry and Terry McLaurin and Amari Cooper and Darren Waller. So like definitely have some upside plays in your lineup. But any last words before we move on to the second matchup?
I just want to point out that Deebo Samuel is looking very good through 2 weeks of the season. Last week he had almost 30 points, and he followed this week with 13 points. So I think he's actually ranked wide receiver 3, I want to say.
He's currently. But, I mean, the thing with Deebo has never been a lack of talent or production when he's on the field. It's always been that he's been hurt. So, I think he hasn't played more than like half the year in any year that he's played. So it's always been tough to play him. But, if he stays healthy, he's definitely a productive player. That's for sure. He's just a high risk. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, especially the way the 49ers get injured every other play, So hopefully he stays healthy for you. And if he does, he'll be productive. But, all right, on to matchup number 2. We have Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba versus Team IR. Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba put up 95.16 fantasy points. This was a very low-scoring matchup. Neither team put up over 100 points. Team IR only put up 88.02 points. And it looks like you're playing hurt players, Team IR. I mean, with the scores they put up, are you sure they played the whole game? I'm not sure. But that was my terrible joke of the week because you were the lowest scorer, Team IR. So we got some crickets here. Can you hear the crickets? I know it's a soft sound.
Yeah, I hear it, but it's faint, but I do hear it.
Yeah, well, I had to turn it down because somebody didn't like how loud the sound effects were. So I knew that was my loudest sound effect. So that's why, I was nervous turning it all down. But as long as it comes through a little bit, that's all right. So the studs on Team IR, there was really only one on each team, actually. So for Team IR, Russell Wilson, I had 23.32. And that's kind of a stretch calling that a stud for a quarterback. But it was a decent game. And then he had a couple players, 15 and 16 points with Nick Chubb and Calvin Ridley. But nobody else really did anything. Scored over Mark Andrews at 8, and nobody else was over 6. So, actually, his defense and kicker outscored, a few position players. So, Jarvis Landry only put up 1.4 fantasy points, and A.J. Brown only 5.8. So, not the best week for Team IR, and he'll have to turn it around here. I think you got to know he's the only other 0-2 team besides my own, unfortunately. However, I have many more points for and points against than he does. So my averages say I'll bounce back and get a few dubs here, but who knows about Team IR? He's had a couple rough weeks. But
yeah, Team IR, he really thought his draft was really good, but I'm not sure it's looking that way right now.
I believe he mocked other teams who now have a win. So I don't know if he can do any more mocking of lineups until he gets some W's,
Yep.
For Team Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba, we have CMC who put up 22.2 fantasy points, always a solid outing for Christian McCaffrey. He can almost always guarantee something over 20 fantasy points. In the duds category, we have CEH with 2.6 fantasy points, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. This was a surprise. They had -1 fantasy points, and the Raiders have been putting up good numbers against good defenses. So kind of surprising. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to talk about in this matchup because nobody really played well.
Yeah,
So.
what do you make of the Kansas City backfield right now? Obviously, CEH did not have a great week.
Yeah, I mean, I just think they don't trust him inside the red zone at all, which makes sense. I mean, he's not a very big back, so
Yep.
I
I do believe that he lost a fumble late in the game. That was the one that he lost a fumble that kind of sealed the game, right? When he really had to hold on to the ball, and he didn't.
yeah.
But he had a touchdown vultured by Daryl Williams. So I'm kind of interested to see where that one is going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think CEH is going to get most of the work, but when they get inside the 5 or even the 10, they're going to take him out because he's just a small back. Like he doesn't have the power to get into the end zone. So, and they tried that last year. He had a lot of red zone touches last year, but he just couldn't get it in the end zone. So yeah, I think CEH is a tough one because he's on like the highest scoring offense in the league, right? So he should definitely be valuable as the lead and basically only back there, but he just doesn't get the work. I mean, they can get it all through their passing game with their passing weapons. They don't need to run the ball. So I think that's just kind of where it's at. But all right, we are on to matchup number 3. We have Juju's TikTok Dance Squad versus Rock the Hawk. Now, this was a higher scoring matchup, much higher than the previous matchup. And Rock the Hawk came out with the W. They put up 130.76 fantasy points versus Juju's 109.6 fantasy points. So we had 3 studs on Rock the Hawk. We had Lamar Jackson with 32.26 fantasy points with that win against the Kansas City Chiefs. That was a great game to watch. We had Mike Evans with 22 fantasy points and the Buffalo defense with 19 fantasy points. So big games on his side of the ball. What do you think of this?
Oh yeah. So I think looking at these stats here, I see Mike Evans had 2 touchdowns on 5 receptions. That'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up. I'm not sure if that's sustainable. And Buffalo's D really does look legit to me. They kind of had their way with the Miami offense for sure.
Yeah, it's tough because I'm not sure how good the Miami offense is, but yeah, I mean, the Bills defense had no problem shutting them down. So, yeah, they're definitely a formidable front for sure. I know this. Who did they play the first week? Was it the Steelers had a tough time. Steelers won, but it was mostly on the back of their defense. So that was a low scoring affair. Buffalo's
next week, Buffalo defense gets to play the Washington football team led by Taylor Heineke. So that should be a good one to watch.
You know what? They won though, didn't they? Didn't Washington win this week?
I believe they did.
So
yeah.
So no, you're right. I think they're definitely going to shut down Terry McLaurin and the rest of the Washington football team. So you better watch that start.
Yep.
We'll see. They can have like 5 guys on Terry McLaurin, and and they can't do anything else. So, but in the duds category, we had Alvin Kamara again. I think didn't he have a rough week 1 too?
He had 6.6 points in week 1.
Yeah. So I don't know. Interesting. They started off well last week against the Packers, right? And then they looked terrible this week, the Saints. I don't know if that's kind of their true colors or if truly they're somewhere in between those 2 performances. But
and watching the Saints game, it looked like Jameis Winston really didn't want to throw a lot of checkdowns to Kamara. So that's something to look at, especially that may affect his PPR value.
Yeah, it is interesting because a lot of people were saying that Jameis Winston would be better for Alvin Kamara than Tyson Hill or Taysom Hill because
He's the better.
James. Yeah, he's a better runner. That's why they were saying he wouldn't check down; he would just run the ball. There's no need to check down when you can run like Taysom Hill can. So, but at the end of the year, I think with Taysom Hill last year, he ended up getting quite a few looks in the passing game. So I think he might be benefiting more from Taysom Hill, which he might get to see soon the way that Jameis Winston played. I mean, this is kind of truly Jameis Winston style, like coming off of a 5-touchdown game and then throwing I don't know how many interceptions in this game, but it was quite a few, wasn't it? It was like 3 or 4, I think, wasn't it?
He threw a lot to the other team.
Yeah. So I don't know. But on the other side of the ball, we had Juju's TikTok dance squad who had a boom game from Kyler Murray this week, who has just been a monster so far. 33.1 fantasy points. He had 400 passing yards with 4 total touchdowns. I'm trying to see 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. He also had 2 interceptions, but a massive game. Arizona looks really good.
Through 2 weeks of the season, Kyler Murray is actually the #1 quarterback. So I think that's something could be really a great value there if we're looking forward to next year's keepers too.
Oh, for sure. I think he got him in like the 5th or 6th round. Wait, did he keep him this year? No, he didn't. He kept Antonio Gibson and Julio, I think. No, maybe. Yeah.
You tell me.
But anyways, Kyler's, I think probably drafted in the 5th or 6th round is going to be great value. Actually, no, 4th round, 34th overall, in the 4th round. So yeah, we'll see. We will see. But I mean, either way, 4th round is a great value for the #1 overall quarterback. So people much more, 2nd or 1st round to get them to guarantee the #1 overall quarterback. But on the negative side, he did have Kareem Hunt playing, who only got him 5.8 fantasy points. And to be fair, for your worst player to score 5.8 fantasy points, I mean, I guess the New Orleans defense had 5, but like position player, your worst position player getting 5.8 really isn't that bad. Just didn't have too many in the double digits. Just a few. So
yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what he will do, whether he'll keep Kareem in the flex or he'll bring up Julio Jones. He had a really good week this week, and he also could have had an over 20-point game, but they reversed a touchdown that was actually a touchdown. I don't know what the ref saw there.
Yeah, that made me mad as a Ryan Tannehill owner. Not that I started him, but I have him sitting there on my bench hoping to get some value out of him at some point. But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think it was a great game overall by the whole Tennessee offense. But unfortunately, the touchdowns didn't fall to the passing game. It was mostly in the running game. So yeah, like you said, he had that one called back, and then I think A.J. Brown had 4 drop passes this week as well. So kind of a rough game on the receiving side, a little bit disappointing. It could have been that much better of a game for the all of the players on Tennessee's offense. So. All right, on to matchup number 4. We have Deshaun's Happy Endings versus my tight end Ertz when Eifert. So the score on the cheat sheet here is wrong. We actually have Deshaun's Happy Endings put up 112.58 fantasy points versus my tight end Ertz had 92.02 fantasy points. So Deshaun's Happy Endings is loving this Cooper Kupp connection, the wide receiver 1 overall this year so far in the first 2 weeks. He had 32.3 fantasy points this week. And that connection with Matt Stafford is looking good. Matthew Stafford is looking fantastic over there in the Rams organization. He just needed some players around him that were actually decent in order for him to, to let everybody know how good of a quarterback he actually is. So,
Yeah.
Let's see what else. We have Joe Burrow in the duds category because he only put up 10 fantasy points as a quarterback. I would consider that a dud. He had 3 interceptions. He only had 207 passing yards, and he threw for 2 touchdowns, but wasn't quite enough to beat the Bears, unfortunately. And then Washington
to the other team.
Was that
Hard to win when you're throwing it to the other team more than you're scoring.
Very true, very true. He also had the Washington defense, which should have been a lock against the Giants offense, but unfortunately, they only got him 2 fantasy points. On the other hand, my tight end Ertzwin Eifert as always, has a big game from Travis Kelce, looking fantastic with his 20.4 fantasy points, 109 yards, and a touchdown on 7 catches. Almost everybody else on his team went single digits. His 4 position players, the 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers he put in, all had single digits. Rough day from Miles Sanders, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Jamal Williams. Oh no, that's Javonte Williams had 7.9 fantasy points. Okay. Denver's defense put up more points than half of his team.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say his team sucks this year.
Yeah, it looked good on paper because he doesn't have the running backs right now. Yeah, he really doesn't have any running backs. But, with DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Adam Thielen, and the potential of Justin Herbert, he's definitely got some huge players that can overcome his woes at running back. And to be fair, most teams only have, one good running back on their team, and their running back 2 is just kind of meh because the state of running back in the NFL nowadays.
This NFL is not deep at running backs for sure.
No, so everybody's scrambling for more running backs. So, except Adam, who has David Montgomery on his bench. Speaking of which, we're moving on to Hot Digsity Dog versus Jarvis Lamar. God, that name. Jarvis Lamar.
Javarison. That's all I can see on my screen.
Yeah, if you click on it, you can see some of it, and then you have to click on it again to see the whole thing. It's like Inception with team names. But speaking of which, the Javaris team put up 153.82 fantasy points, as we said previously, won the week. So congratulations on winning the week. Hot Digsity Dog, on the other hand, only put up 110.08 fantasy points. He unfortunately lost this matchup, but like I was saying, he did have David Montgomery on the bench, which ended up being, he could have put him in the flex, but his other 2 running backs did outscore David Montgomery. So it was a good call on that note. But he did have Austin Eckler put up 18 fantasy points. He had Gronk with another 2 touchdowns on 4 catches for 39 yards. That seems to be the motto. I think it was just super high efficiency for Tampa Bay. They had super short fields all day too. I think there were some turnovers or something because Tom Brady didn't have a high passing yardages, but he did have 4 or 5 touchdowns. So,
and I think, do you think a tight end can sustain this? When watching the amount of film that Rob Gronkowski is, did you hear about that?
Yeah, he doesn't watch film. For some people though, it might not matter. For people like Gronk, something like watching film, like when you're more athletic and bigger than the people that guard you, it doesn't really matter who guards you.
All he
At
has to
some
do is
point.
listen to Tom, and Tom will tell him what to do, and he'll be all right.
Exactly. Yeah. Tom is one of the best strategists in the game, and he'll put him in the right spot for sure. Um, so I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think it's possible to keep up 2 touchdowns a week. However, I think he's definitely going to be relevant this year. He could be in the conversation with the top 4 or 5 tight ends for sure. So consistent week in and week out. Whether or not that's 2 touchdowns and 15 plus points every week, that might not be the case, but I think Tom Brady loves his Gronk, right? So,
Sure.
and then New England defense had a great game this week against the Jets. They have 4 interceptions and only allowed 6 points. Did end up with 16 fantasy points this week. So, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get you over 153 fantasy points because you had duds like Antonio Brown in your lineup. Who only put up 2.2 after a massive week 1. I think that's just how that offense is going to go. Number one, you were starting 2 pass catchers from the same offense in your lineup, so that's always a dangerous proposition. But I think with the pass catchers in Tampa Bay, it's mostly going to be like 2 of the wide receivers and Gronk will be relevant that week, and who knows which of those 2 wide receivers it's going to be. So, I mean, at this point, you basically just have to start Antonio Brown or start your pass catchers in Tampa Bay and hope it's not your week to be bad.
Yep. Another thing I want to look at is take a look at Zeke Elliott. So he had 16.7 points, a solid day, 71 yards, a touchdown. But I think the bigger story here is that his backup, Tony Pollard, actually rushed for 109 yards and a touchdown. Would you
Yeah.
fade Zeke right now?
No, I think people are overreacting to this game by Tony Pollard. Like, yes, he is a great athlete and he's a great running back, and it's unfortunate that he's sitting behind Zeke in the depth chart. But I think in the NFL in general, you always see the backups get more efficient numbers because they're coming in on situations where the box isn't stacked, or like they're coming in on third downs, or just like situations where they don't necessarily expect them to run the ball. So they end up getting a higher yard per carry numbers, and the fact that their legs are fresher throughout the game because they're not getting the higher snaps. I think that makes them look like they have more juice than the starters, where the starter themselves might actually be the better football player. So I've seen a lot of people like talking about, oh, give Tony Pollard more work. He's better than Zeke because he put up better numbers on less carries or whatever. But like that's kind of always been the narrative for a relatively decent backup court or running back. He's not going to take over Zeke's job. I think in this offense, there's room for both of them to be relevant, like they were this week. So,
Yeah, I do think, though, I think it's a trend that we're going to see Pollard cutting into Zeke because, I mean, Zeke has a lot of miles on him, right? He's a young running back, but running backs traditionally do not last very long, especially with the kind of workload he usually gets.
right.
I think Zeke will still stay the number 1, but I do think Pollard's going to eat into his value a little bit.
I think if they were concerned about, like if they thought Zeke was near the end of his like time as a good running back, I feel like they would run him into the ground as opposed to pulling him out for Tony Pollard. I think they would keep using Zeke as much as they can and then drop him when they can to bring in Pollard as their full-time running back. You know what I mean? If they see that as, the possibility. But the fact that they're playing, I don't know what the snap count was for the both of them. But, I think it was still like Zeke was still in the 60s or high 60s or low 70s for snap percentage. And then Tony Pollard just happened to get the ball when he was in. So it looked like he was being used more than he actually was. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Tony Pollard is a great player, but it's Zeke, so it's tough to supplant somebody like Zeke in the football. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's something I'm definitely going to keep an eye on and maybe hope for a little bit, considering I'm a Tony Pollard owner in this league.
Oh, there you go. Oh, so you were just asking that to try to, ask if you should be starting Tony Pollard every week. You think that they're going to be using more frequently?
I don't know if I'm at the level of starting him yet,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly going to be keeping an eye on the situation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you get a favorable matchup where Dallas is highly favored, like I'm sure they would probably throw in Tony Pollard near the end of the game if it's a blowout and, get all of the work in the second half of a game or something.
Yep.
That could be a start situation. But all right, back to the matchup at hand. We got a little off topic with you trying to go all homer on your lineup, but well, let's go to the studs and duds on Javaris, and Lamar's team. We had Patrick Mahomes, who had an okay game, 24.02 fantasy points. That's decent. He also had Aaron Jones, who I don't have in this outline because it was last night and I didn't feel like writing him in later. He had 38.5 fantasy points. How about that? And his, the home opener for the Packers.
Yep.
I think they just needed this bounce back game, and I think they're going to be a high powered offense the rest of the year. And then we got Tyler Lockett with 27.8 fantasy points. He's looking like, I kind of like faded away from Lockett a little bit. Like I was kind of hands off in drafts for Tyler Lockett just because of the way his points came last year. They were all like 3 of his games accounted for like 80% of his fantasy points last year. And then like the other 12 weeks, you were just pissed off that he was in your lineup. So I think I kind of faded off of him when going into drafts, but maybe I should have reconsidered and drafted him more frequently this year.
He's a really big deep field target, right? And Russell can sling it when they let Russ cook. He usually cooks well. And next week he has the Vikings coming up, who their secondary has been a little suspect this year.
Yeah. No, it'll be definitely. I think that's a great matchup for them again. So I think, I think both wide receivers there could definitely have a good game. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And actually, Seattle's defense hasn't looked that great either. So I think that that Minnesota could put up points too. So Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and what's his name? What's his face? The third wide receiver for Minnesota, who's getting looks from everybody now because he had 2 decent games in the slot. I forgot his name.
You tell me.
What's that?
You tell me.
I will tell you. Maybe.
KJ Osborne, was it?
Yeah, KJ Osborne. That's it. So you told me. But yeah, he's looked good too. So I think they're going to be all relevant this week as well in fantasy. He also had the Tampa Bay defense, who put up 19 fantasy points. They had 2 touchdowns this week. So they gave up 25 points to Atlanta, but they also scored 14 of their own points, or 12 of their own points technically. And yeah, I mean, what?
Along with picking off, was it Matt Ryan 3 times?
3 times, yeah. Matt Ryan has not looked good. That Falcons offense is not a fantastic offense, but he also had in the bust category. Dallas Goedert was his really, and Kenny Galladay. I'll count Kenny Galladay too with 5.3 points. Dallas Goedert had 3.4, so not so great from those 2 guys, but the rest of the team made up for it. So can't really complain when you score 153 fantasy points on the week. So,
yep.
Congratulations once again to our boy James for winning this week and getting your $10. So, all right, on to the waiver wire team that would kick all of our asses. Are you ready, Neil? This is gonna be great. the team that nobody would ever suspect. We have Jameis Winston in the quarterback one. Or no, I'm sorry. What the heck? I forgot to erase that name. Daniel Jones as the quarterback for this fantasy team. He had 29.46 fantasy points this week. In the running back one spot, Cordero Patterson with 21.4 fantasy points. That's probably a name you would never hear brought up in a fantasy football podcast for the last 3 years. And now all of a sudden he's relevant again.
Also, the transition to running back.
Yeah, I think he's eligible on since he made the transition, he hasn't been relevant. Is that what you're saying? He's always been kind of a backup.
No, he's always a wide receiver, right?
Yeah, he was originally a wide receiver, but the Bears started using him as a running back because they didn't have anybody else on their depth chart behind Montgomery last year, 2 years ago, last year. So he got released by the Bears or something and got signed by the Falcons, I guess. And who knows? Maybe he's taking over Mike Davis's job. I don't know. But we got J.D. Mckissick was the running back too on this waiver wire team. He had 17.8 fantasy points. The wide receiver one for the waiver wire team, Rondale Moore for the Arizona Cardinals. Rookie wide receiver. He had 20.9 fantasy points. I'm kind of mad that he's not on my team because I picked him up for an hour last week, and then I dropped him again for MVS, thinking he was going to have high upside this week. Little did I know that Rondale Moore was going to score 21 fantasy points. Probably wouldn't have started him anyways, but oh well. Then we got Henry Ruggs, also was previously on my fantasy team with 20 fantasy points. Man, feels bad that these two guys are on the waiver wires and they could have been on my team. We got the tight end, Max Williams, also from the Arizona Cardinals, 12.9 fantasy points. Unknown tight end. I think he might be a rookie. I'm not sure, but he won't be relevant most weeks, I'm sure. We got Freddy Swain with 18.5 fantasy points. He is a wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. He had a good game this week. In the defensive spot, the Bears had 21 fantasy points. Put up a good game against the Bengals. And then Graham Gano with 22 fantasy points. He had a huge game. He had Thursday night game, right? He had five field goals or something. 2 of them over 50 yards. Yeah, it was insane. Anyway, this team would have put up 183.96 fantasy points. Come on, son. So the waiver wire is 2-0 for the year. So like I said, I think only two teams have ever beat the waiver wire. Unfortunately, we were not one of them this week. So boo us. All right. Well, Neil, any comments on that waiver wire team? You could have had all of those players in your lineup and scored 183 fantasy points.
Could have had them and could have started them. It's my bad. It's on me.
Yeah, you got the W anyway, so you don't really care. But you could have gotten $10, so.
True.
All right, well, on to the matchup predictions for next week. Are you ready for this?
I am.
You ready? So last week, unfortunately, I went 1-5 in my matchup predictions. So that was terrible. This week I'm looking to do better. Benaiah did go 2 for 5, so he beat me last week. So you guys are 1-0. Maybe I should keep a tally. You guys are 1-0 against me this year. Not were, are. Sure, you know that. All right, so we'll do the first matchup for next week is the Real Slim Brady versus Hot Digsity Dog. Now, this should be a tough matchup for the Real Slim Brady, but I believe right now I'm projected to score more points than Hot Digsity Dog. Let's take a look. How are you taking a look at the lineups here?
Let's see. It looks like you are you are projected to have 1.7 more points. ESPN saying it's basically a 50-50 shot. Could go either way. I would actually have to give the edge to Hot Diggity Dog just because I feel like they have more depth at the running back position. And if they make a switch or two, their flex can look really good as well.
I'm going to disagree with you and tell you that my team is better. So the real Slim Brady I have winning this matchup. Obviously, they're favored going into it. And, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I got some ideas on how to make my team a little bit better. So we'll see how waivers go. We'll see how the rest of this week goes, and we'll see if we can't beef up this lineup a little bit. So, but I think that even with this lineup, I got the upside of Tom Brady in a shootout with the Rams. I got Dalvin Cook in a shootout with Seattle, which I think can be massive for Dalvin Cook. He is currently still healthy. He has no injury designation despite rolling his ankles twice over the weekend. It still says he's healthy, so I'm not too concerned about that. Allen Robinson against Cleveland, that should probably be a good game. And DJ Moore against Houston, that's going to be massive. I think DJ Moore is going to have a great game. And then George Kittle will have the opportunity to bounce back this week against Green Bay. So I think my team has plenty of upside. And Tyson Williams versus Detroit, like prime matchups here. So despite the facts that my team doesn't have a lot of name power, I think they might surprise this week. So. What's that?
I said we shall see.
We shall see. All right, on to matchup number 2. We have Ain't No Waller Back Girl, which is you, my man, versus Rock the Hawk. All right, let's take a look. I haven't looked at any of these matchups, so I don't know how they really look.
I'm going to go off. I think another A-Rod in prime time. I think he's going to be looking pretty good. But Lamar Jackson is playing against Detroit for Rock the Hawk, so that should be a close one. Jonathan Taylor has not gotten off to the start that I would have thought that he would have, especially since I used a keeper on him. Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. Enough said there. Scary Terry against Buffalo. That'll be a tough one. I think Cooper's going to bounce back. I do feel that my running backs are a little bit better than Rock the Hawks, and I think Rock the Hawks receiving core looks a little bit more impressive than mine. I think this is going to be a close one, but I'm pretty confident that my team, the better team, will come out with the win. What do you think?
Yeah, I really don't like his flex. Leonard Fournette just really doesn't give me confidence at all.
So he doesn't have any bench depth either.
Doesn't. Hey,
so it's just interesting to see how that goes.
Maybe we could work out a trade here. I'm calling you out, Ryle. Let's trade. Because I have some depth at running back, which I think all of my running backs are better than Myles Gaskin, Leonard Fournette, Michael Carter, those 3 guys. And, that's Deontay Johnson. He's questionable. I thought that was another running back, but it wasn't. Because there's like 3 D Johnson running backs, David Johnson, all those. So I thought it was one of those, but hey, you know what? I got a couple of RB2s that maybe you could use, and you might have a player or 2 that I'm interested in. So take a look, and let's work something out, Ryle. Maybe part of me making my team a little bit better, and you can make your team a little bit better. We'll scratch my back, scratch yours. I'm going to go with you as well in this matchup because I agree. I think if he could switch up, I think if he puts Mike Williams in his flex, he has the high upside that like Deebo Samuel does. But as the lineup currently stands, I think you got the W here.
Yep.
So on to matchup number 3. We got Deshaun's Happy Endings versus Team IR. Man, this does not look good for Team IR. They are only projected for 93 fantasy points. That's because Jarvis Landry is projected for 0. So throw somebody else in there. But he has no depth to throw in there. So I don't know what he's going to do. He's got a bunch of these players who like he thinks might be good at some point, like Larry Roundtree, who has really no role in the offense. Amon-Ra St. Brown, who also has no role in the Detroit's offense. I don't know. Figure out your team, man.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty bad draft to me.
It does. It does. I mean, he did have the, well, I guess he drafted Michael Thomas, but also Raheem Mostert got hurt right away, which, self-fulfilling prophecy and all of Team IR. But I think I'm going to have to go with Deshaun's happy endings on this one.
I think I'm going to have to follow the same because really, Team IR just sucks.
I hope you're listening to this, Brandon. Get your team straight. Maybe we could do a trade or something because you have a couple of good players, but you need some depth. Depth, not death. That would be bad. I don't wish death on your team, just depth. All right, that was an easy one. On to the next matchup. Javaris, and Lamar, which I'm sure will be a different team name next week, versus Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba. All right, we have Josh Allen versus Washington. We have Christian McCaffrey versus Houston. Oh, that's going to be a massive game for CMC. CEH in a questionable matchup against LA, the Chargers. Justin Jefferson, Robert Woods. Looks like a pretty good lineup. We do have Pat Mahomes, Aaron Jones, Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett on the other side. This could be a very high-scoring matchup. What do you think?
I definitely think that looks like Javaris or James has a pretty good quarterback, pretty good running back.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if he has the depth enough this week. So I'm going to go with Team Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba because I really like his depth at the wide receiver position, although I'm not a huge fan of CEH.
He does have James has Cortland Sutton on the bench right now. So if he does a little swapski with Kenny Galladay, that's not too bad of a wide receiver core. So, but yeah, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you. I think it's gonna be a massive game for CMC this week, and for Justin Jefferson against Seattle. So I'm gonna pick Chubba Hubba Dubba Bubba. It might be the only difference is my matchup. So if I just win, I beat you next week. But
one more to go over.
We do have one more to go over. That's what I was just about to say. All right, we have my tight end Ertz when Eifert versus Juju's TikTok Dance Squad. Wow, wow. We have Kyler Murray in a huge matchup against Jacksonville. Now, is that going to be bad for Kyler Murray? The fact that it's against Jacksonville? Maybe he doesn't have to throw as much. Maybe it's just running the ball with whoever's on Arizona. I forgot who are the running backs for Arizona. Are they even?
If I remember correctly.
Right? Still?
Edmonds is one of them. I know that.
Kenny Drake's on Las Vegas, right?
James Conner is one of them.
That's right. Those are the two. Yeah, it might be a Chase Edmonds day. Who knows? But either way, I think he's going to outscore. Well, Justin Herbert might put up a good game against the Chiefs. That's going to be a high-scoring matchup. So,
yep,
should be good. Antonio Gibson against Buffalo. That's a tough matchup. Joe Mixon against Pittsburgh, which Pittsburgh's defense didn't really look that great this week. They look good week 1, but not necessarily week 2. Devontae Adams versus San Francisco. the 49ers have always been Green Bay's kryptonite, so we'll see how that goes. Julio Jones versus Indianapolis, that could be good. Jamar Chase against Pittsburgh as well. Man, he's really relying on this Bengals offense. I think I'm going to have to go with my tight end, Ertz. Like we said, even though he doesn't have the running backs, he's got those high-scoring players, Thielen, Hill, Metcalf, Kelsey, who I think are going to put up big games for him.
Yeah, I'm going to pick against you this time. I think Kyler Murray is going to look really good. I don't think Justin Herbert is really going to show out like we know he can. And I'm on the Joe Mixon train this week. I think he's going to have a good week against that Pittsburgh defense. And I think Devontae is really good. Devontae is really going to show out on Sunday Night Football. And I think Jamar Chase is really there. I know there was a knock on him earlier because he said that the ball was a little bit harder to catch in the NFL. But so far, he's looking pretty good at 18 points in week 1, only 12 points in week 2, but he's catching the ball just fine. So I'm going to go with Juju's TikTok Dance Squad.
There you go. All right, so we have 2 different. We'll see how it goes, but yeah, then I just have a chance to beat you by 2 this week. So, so unfortunately, we didn't get any questions this week. I also didn't ask 4 questions, unfortunately. Do you have any questions that you would like answered? I know you asked a few during the session itself here, but
I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about what happened on the waiver wire last week.
What happened on the waiver wire last week? Oh, just the big numbers by Adam mostly.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's gonna put him in a tough position. I mean, I know players are technically more valuable in the first few weeks because you get them for a longer part of the year. That's kind of how a lot of people talk about Fab, but giving up like what? He's only got $13 left, so that might come to haunt him here. He won't be able to pick up anybody on waivers, anybody that he wants. Like top candidates each week are probably going to be gone because he won't have the money to pay up for them. So he has a pretty good team right now, but if he gets an injury or kind of starts to lose a little bit of that depth or coming around to buys, like he might have a tough time trying to find streamers or anything like that. What do you think?
I'm on your side on this one. I think it's too much to spend for. I think he was for Elijah Mitchell, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Gronk, yeah, but Elijah Mitchell especially, I don't think that was worth it.
Right.
He had a good one, and week 2 he had 17 rushes, so a good amount of rushes, only for 42 yards. I really think actually game 1 was kind of more of a fluke for him than anything else, but time will tell.
Yeah, I think mostly because like Trey Sermon wasn't active, and they were expecting Raheem Mostert to take the brunt of the work, and now like Elijah Mitchell has that, but they also have 3 other running backs, but they all got hurt this week. Like all of the 49ers running backs, like Trey Sermon is in the concussion protocol. There was a third one besides Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. Jermichael Hasty, he was also hurt. But I don't know. There might be one of them that is going to be good to go this weekend. It might be Mitchell, but they all got hurt this week, which is typical of a 49ers player. But yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to return the whatever 56 or 60 whatever dollars he spent on him. And then I think Gronk will probably be worth the 20 whatever that he spent on him. But yeah, I don't think that Mitchell will do the job for him. I mean, it's the same thing that like somebody like I don't know. Nobody went for that much money last year. But like you you get fool's gold after week one, like especially with someone like Elijah Mitchell, who, in that backfield, like you could put anybody in that backfield and they could run for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns any day with that scheme. So like, I don't think they put much value into one running back over the rest of them. So it was kind of bold to put that much money onto that player, I think.
I do think it'll be interesting to see how, because correct me if I'm wrong, but is this our second year using the budget?
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see how it's going to play out versus last year, because I know that last year a few people had some money left over at the end of the year that they really just couldn't find one because they were kind of holding on to it too tight. I feel like this year people are going to be more willing to spend it. I mean, I think Adam was an extreme case.
Right.
I think you will see things kind of like that, especially early in the season when, like you said, free agents might be a little bit more valuable.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I'm not sure how much like maybe Ryo really pays attention to waivers too much, or like Aaron, or they were the ones that still had like $100 or $92 of their 100 left at the end of the year. But yeah, so far Adam only has 13 left, and I'm the next lowest with 88 still. So Adam's going to be in dire straits for the rest of the year, I think, with free agents. So we'll definitely see how it plays out. But yeah, I think I feel a little more loose with my money as well. Like knowing that, if you grab somebody here in the first, 5 weeks or so, they're definitely valuable could potentially be valuable for the rest of the year. You'll get more return on your money that you spend. So we'll see. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But, well, Neil, how do you feel? We made it through.
I feel pretty good, and I'm excited for this week, especially with the team that's stuck in this league.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, your team definitely looks better than it has in the past. So I'm sure you're excited to get some dubs this year and, be in contention at the end of the year, hopefully.
For sure.
So, yeah, no, I mean, even I was like scratching and clawing, and I'm going to be scratching and clawing this year. So maybe my team will be the one that's on the bottom, unfortunately. But we're going to try to make some moves and make sure that doesn't happen. But always scratching and clawing to have a better week, right?
Of course. That's the grind.
That's the grind. That's what makes it fun. So, all right. Well, we made it through. I'm so glad that you joined me. I'm so glad that all of you watching joined us. I had a great time. I hope you did too, Neil. Thank you for joining me this week.
Pleasure as always.
Always. So yeah, you guys, good luck this week. We'll see what happened on the waiver wires by the time this is out. It will not be the waiver wires will be done, and we'll know who has who in the waiver wires. So we will see how that goes. But yeah, guys, good luck this weekend, and I hope to come bearing good news next week off of a victory over Adam Stovall's team, and I get to taunt all over him next week. I am so stoked for that. So, Neil, once again, thanks for joining me. Y'all have a good rest of the week, and I'll catch you next week.
Peace. I don't hear any music.
It's coming. That's because I turned it way down. See you guys. Have a good week.